Just know where you come from.
Thanks, Vic. So welcome everybody, and welcome to our half-hour discussion on the intersectionality of asset-based community development and trauma-informed community building conversation today. I'm just going to, we are recording the session, which has already started, and I'm just going to do an acknowledgement to country. So I'd like to pay my respects to the traditional custodians of the land that I sit on, and I'm sitting on Lutruwita, which is known as Tasmania. I'd like to pay my respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders and honour their spirit and honour their culture and the history and all of the knowledge that we can be learning from them. And I'm inviting anybody who is interested in reconciliation and truth-telling to take that path in a way that suits you and find people to connect with to do that. I'd also like to acknowledge that the lands of Australia were never ceded, and that we as Unity Institute are continuing on that journey of reconciliation. So thank you, and if you want to put the lands of that you're coming to us from today as well in the chat, that would be fantastic. Thank you. As you can see on the screen, there's a little bit there that just says who we are as your hosts, and there's a little blurb there about all of us. These slides will be available to you if you want to see them later as well. So yeah, as we said, there's a few people just dropping in, so pop your name and your pronouns, location, traditional owners of your land in the chat, and anything else you'd like us to know today, that would be fantastic. And we'll kick off. Thanks, Michelle. So one of the reasons we came to this work was we're noticing more and more over the last few years as well about trauma and the impacts it's having, not just in our smaller and group communities, but our broader communities and global as well. And this slide, when we're looking at this work, resonates with me a lot. And I will read it to you. It says, trauma impacts the entire person, the way they learn, the way they remember things, the way they feel about themselves, feel about others, and the way they make sense of the world. And there's something for me about imagery and how it tells a story, and the image of someone with their hands covering their face is twofold. It is so others can't see them and what's happening for them, but also so that they don't have to look at others looking in on them and asking for questions as well. And we often find with trauma and spaces that we're working with people with trauma that they're constantly asked about everything in their worlds and retelling their stories. And this to me just is that absolute stop point of, I don't want to say anything anymore. I don't want to be seen anymore. I don't want to be heard anymore. And part of our work is to be really more trauma informed the way we work in the future as well. And with everybody, to be inclusive. So, and you may have your own thoughts on that image, and that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. So I just wanted to, sorry, I've just got a really urgent message. Speak really briefly. I'm not going to go over these one by one, but these were some values that were internationally crowdsourced by a whole lot of practitioners over a couple of years. And it was in 2019, actually, at the ABCD Institute gathering, the faculty of Steward gathering in Chicago, that we finalized them. And so this is kind of the essence of, you know, the work that we do. And as I said, I'm not going to go over them one by one, but it's kind of a bit of an overview and a picture of what we've been doing when we're looking at that intersection with trauma-informed practice, because these values certainly guide us and help us move in that direction. And yeah, we're getting increasingly asked to offer these workshops, and they're becoming much clearer for us. So keep these in mind as we move forward, because we don't have long, and Michelle will go over the next ones and into the discussion. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Dee. Sorry, I just realised I was having difficulties unmuting myself whilst sharing my screen. So Dee's just sort of, we've shown you the ABCD values, and as Fiona said, we came to incorporating trauma-informed community building much more into our work for a whole lot of reasons. Fiona and I both come out of working in and continue to work in disaster spaces. I also come from a First Nations perspective, and we see trauma impacting communities, and we know that trauma can impact a person's or a community's ability to be able to come together, work together to create great outcomes, or even to have conversations. So we started blending our ABCD practice with trauma-informed community building. And we can see the principles up there on the screen that we have adapted from the work of Weinstein, Wallen and Rose from the Bridge, which is an organisation based in San Francisco. And if you Google trauma-informed community building, you'll come up with two, the first version and the second version of the work and the findings that they did in communities in San Francisco, particularly public housing communities. So building on from that, the principles that Weinstein et al. Offered, we also have some strategies around that. And we've adapted these strategies slightly to be more in keeping with the way that we work as a team and the things that we know that work in communities, you know, from an individual perspective right through to that systems focus and sort of everything in between. So basically, building on those principles of do no harm, acceptance, self-determination, and the reflective process, and not just the reflective process from a practitioner's point of view, but a reflective process for communities. It's quite often what we don't do as communities is spend time in reflecting. We move on to the next thing, and or the reflection is not always a positive experience for everybody. So we share these with you because we want, and I'll stop sharing the screen in a moment, we want us to have a conversation here as a group is, can you see how ABCD and trauma-informed community building intersects or are linked? And what are your thoughts? We just wanted this to be a really casual, open conversation. We're mindful that none of us are experts in trauma-informed care. We all do incorporate it into our work. We're not psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., but we've just found value in creating that space, that ABCD space that comes from a trauma-informed approach. So basically just really wanting to open the conversation. Can you see how these two practices link? I'm happy for anybody to share their thoughts.
Michelle, can you just share that slide again? Might just be helpful if that's right. The trauma-informed.
The trauma-informed one?
Yeah,
sure.
that'd be, thank you.
So just the principles there, Vicky, or did you want?
I think the one before it, if that's all right.
The one before is the values, the ABCD values.
Sorry, the third one with the information.
Oh, okay, sorry. So that the sort of the
That
strategy.
one, yeah. Thank you.
So any feedback on those strategies, and can you see that the ABCD linkages within them?
Definitely in the pillar that's community, absolutely. I think definitely that's even the first point around circle practice, most definitely. I know with my work I've done post-disaster where there's a majorly traumatised community, for us working in circles has been really significant, because if you think about how meetings normally happen, particularly around discussing really heavy issues that happen post, you know, a trauma that can occur on a community level, if you have tables, there's a real sort of, I guess, inequity around, you know, what leadership looks like, and people sit at the head of the table. I think stripping away, we found in our community, the table and having someone at the head of the table, removing that power struggle around who's in charge and having people sit in circle has opened up much more significant dialogue, and it removes that sort of barrier around, well, everyone in circles equal as well. So I think for me, most definitely from working in a traumatised community, the practice around having conversation in circle has probably been highly significant for us.
And I think I was in Kari Lynn's session earlier today around Indigenous communities, and we know from the work that we do that sitting in circle is actually really culturally appropriate across a whole range of different communities. And so it is important that we embed that in all of our ABCD work, which is also a trauma-informed approach. Any other thoughts from others that have joined?
Yeah, this is April. Hey, I think like along the community lines and circle, one thing that jumped out for me of like what I've picked up in my practice, and a lot in like observing just really talented community builders here in my city, is like using practices that feel very natural. So kind of building on the circle, like here in Indianapolis, there's a practice of using meals. So if you want to kind of, whether it's circling around someone who's going through a tough time and really focusing in on what their gifts and dreams are, and giving them also space to share where they're at, giving the group a chance to come forward and be supportive of them, or like meeting to talk about an issue or a project, like always starting with meals, because it you know, it's like nourishing, and B, it you know, has, it's much more like hospitable and inviting, and kind of takes it away from feeling like an other space that is being controlled, you know, by someone other than the community. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, these really reinforce, especially like the develop authentic relationships on the individual level. And maybe I guess I would just, I think the ABCD practice of like working with connectors alongside like the developed community leadership, like finding and partnering with connectors who already, you know, from within the community, who have a very deep sensitivity of the trauma that's there, of what's appropriate, what won't re-traumatize people. I've just found that to be, and sorry if I missed it in here already.
No. It probably is implicit, but maybe not explicit. Yeah. So, and it's from the work that we've done too, we always find never call it a community meeting. And you're right, April, having food at the centre takes away, a bit like even Vicky was saying with the circle practice, the more that it takes away sort of power and traditional ways that other providers or organisations might try and connect in with communities, where they think having a big community meeting is the way to do it, is maybe not necessarily coming to it from a trauma-informed approach.
Yeah, the meal helps promote and create that safe space too. Because, you know, when we eat together, we share together, and it's, yeah, that's just safer than that more formalised meeting.
Any thoughts by others?
Me personally, this is Jamel from Philadelphia. Me personally, when it comes to being trauma informed, what I do with the young adults is that, you know, even though I work with young adults that have a lot of trauma, but what I try to do is see them more than their trauma. When you're in the field of social work, it's more so focused on the situation, the problem that we have, and they don't allow you to see beyond the problem. So what I try to do is, coming from my background, growing up in, you know, foster care, I try to implement seeing them more than just that, right? So more than their trauma, they have their trauma, but they're more than just that. And coming into a healing centered space, a healing engagement centered space, whereas though it's like, look, we're not going to focus on the trauma, we're going to focus beyond the trauma, because that's just one part of you. That's not all of you. That's just one particular part of your life. And it may take a hold of your life for the moment right now, but you can see past that trauma. You still got chapters to write in your life. So yeah, that's how I kind of focus on that. And you know, even when my community is going through a trauma, I try to bring out what is our community resilient in, right? And understanding, like, listen, it's just a moment, and we're gonna survive this moment, and we're gonna push through it. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Thanks, Jamil. And you, I don't know, and this is my question to you. I know when Fiona and I work in disaster impacted or affected communities, the sense of being able to embrace that we've got lived experience. So there's almost that instant connection that we're not an other coming into their community. We're somebody that's got lived experience and understands where they're coming from. Do you find that in your work, blending ABCD and that trauma-informed approach helps?
Yes, exactly. And that's how I approach everything I do. I come with the lived experience first, and then my education second. And even when I'm in like the room with, because I train, you know, I kind of train, you know, case managers, young case managers, right, around the lived experience of being in foster care and understanding that what, even though people went to school for it, it does not equal what we go through when we're in the system. So I kind of break away the barriers and let them see it in a different light. And that light bulb goes on and say, oh, wow, I never thought of that. Or I never even thought of this. This may trigger a person when I'm coming to help. You know, just the mannerisms and language that they may use may trigger a young adult that be like, oh no, I don't want this person. So I don't want this person around me. So yeah, I do come with the lived experience first and like, listen, I've been through it, I understand it, but this is how we're gonna work through it, me and you together. And it breaks down the barrier too. So
absolutely. Thanks, Jamil. Sorry, I stopped sharing so that I can see everybody's faces, because is there any other, where can others see? Or have you even thought of trauma-informed before and trauma-informed practice? Because it doesn't generally fit within general community development training.
I just want to, Michelle, on that. This morning in one of the other sessions I was in, it was really a lovely undertone the group that I was in, and I was mentioning something about working with someone with autism, and there was someone in the group who said, I can resonate with what you're saying because of this. And so I said, oh, I'm really sorry if I've triggered you. She's, oh, no, it's better to have it out there. She said, I prefer the transparency. And so we were talking about that transparency in trauma in that impact space as well. And I'm curious about that from people as well, is how transparent can you be in that trauma-informed space before it's a story about you rather than the people you're with?
My personal opinion, it kind of evolves, right? So it's like the story can be about you, but you also have to remember that you got to bring it back full circle, right? And come with the commonality of the commonality of the issue. Because when I'm in those spaces and I know like me and this person, we can relate, I kind of draw a parallel situation going on. And then I bring it to, that even though I went through some of the similar stuff that you went through, and it may be different, but I can relate. But that there's, looking at myself, there's greener pastures on the other side, right? So when I'm working with young adults, it's always, I want to relate to them, but I also want to show, listen, I've been through it. I came out on the other side. And to be honest and frank with them and say, listen, as I grow older, I still sometimes experience those traumas. You know what I mean? But you have to recognize that, yeah, as an adult, you're still going to go through those traumas, but you'll know when you're getting triggered, and you'll know how to adjust and deal with it at that time as you get older.
And I think
and you transition out of it.
That's that skill of creating those safe spaces for mutual sharing, but also mutual support. And I think that, one of my things I find that having gone through a bushfire experience, that sometimes, I think I cope with the trauma okay, and I've dealt with that a bit like you were saying, Jamil, a chapter in my life. But then sometimes the most unrelated things can bring all of that back. And it might be just in, if you've ever lived through a disaster, you seem to have to fill out, 3 forests worth of paperwork and then tell your story another 15 million times. It just feels like that. And sometimes those little things, when I'm given a big stack of papers to read through and sign, can be the trigger. So it's really about thinking, how do we do things that meet people where they're at?
That's what I was going to say to answer Fiona's question. I think it's just ensuring we're not devalidating the other person. I think you can share the commonalities, but ensure that they're heard and they feel heard is really important. And understanding, as Jamil said, it's a moment in time. And I think, having the other person understand that I'm hearing you, it is a moment in time, things will change in time, and the trigger is really important. And I think what Michelle said as well, I was going to say the only other thing I recognised from the model was the individual meeting them where they're at has the double folded meaning of actually physically meeting them where they're at. I think it's really important, and emotionally meeting them where they're at as well. Because quite often we get people in a room and we're like, oh my God, that person, their behaviour, but it's actually understanding this is where they're at right now. We have an expectation when people come to a gathering, they're going to be presenting in a certain way. That is not how it happens. So being able to step out of yourself and realise that this is where someone is at and it's actually okay. They're not going to always be where we expect them to be.
That's right. So you can actually set goals that are more appropriate for that moment in time. So you're not overstretching someone who's in that state of trauma at that moment. And just little steps can sometimes be the best steps.
And try to strip away our own judgment too. Quite often if we work in agency, we think that people need to be presenting in a certain way behaviourally as well. And quite often we never receive that and it doesn't happen. So ensuring that we understand that their behaviour isn't necessarily a bad behaviour, it's just where they're at right now.
And I think it's, you've got a great point there, Vicky. And when we think about from a community building perspective, it's also, you know, if we're working in a community, or even if it's our own community, is building that shared acceptance that those behaviours aren't the person. It can be the trauma and the way, you know, just sometimes as community members or a community as a whole, we can be quite judgmental of people that don't show up to the norms. And there's a whole lot of reasons why. And it's not because that person's, you know, a bad person or whatever. They're dealing with a whole lot of stuff.
Quite often we pigeonhole people, I think, when that happens as well. I mean, I think it's really important to have boundaries around what you will and won't accept, but I also believe that, you know, it's important to understand that. That's my thought anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Vicky.
Yes, a person who's experiencing trauma is really feeling quite helpless at that particular moment in time too. And so just being that caring extra ear and letting them know that you're listening and understanding the impact of that trauma without elaborating on it, without sort of taking it somewhere else. Anyway, just another extra thing to keep an eye on.
Thanks, Vic. And I'm mindful. I just want to check in with Jo, Eleanor, and Kari Lynn, if you wanted to add anything to the conversation before we wrap up. Thanks, Eleanor. Thanks for joining. It must be awfully late in Sweden.
It's Carrie Lynn. I just wanted to say I recently took some training on trauma-informed facilitation. And one of the things I took away from that was the idea that we can learn from and grow from and find something positive out of our trauma, which was something, even though I come from an asset-based or abundance-based lens, I didn't, I think, look that far down the line, maybe because I'm still overcoming my own trauma, but I found that gave me a sense of hopefulness. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. There's a whole lot in that. Post-traumatic growth is really some interesting research there. Jo, did you want to add something?
Nothing to add, just listening.
Beautiful. Thanks, Jo. And probably madly tweeting, might I admit. She's the ABCD Unconference tweet queen is Joanne. April, did you want to share anything before we wrap up our little half-hour chat?
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Real quick. Yeah, no. Carolyn, I was thinking along those lines too. Like, I took part in the like core gift facilitation training that Bruce Anderson does. And I found that so valuable, you know, the process that he's developed over a lot of time and, you know, draws upon a lot of wisdom from many other cultures. But that kind of grounding idea that that our gift, and especially this idea of like a core gift, but I think it applies to other gifts as well when we're doing ABCD work, is it is something that like it's the idea of it being tied to our ancestors, and like our ancestors kind of wishing for us to encounter difficult experiences that will have the function of bringing our core gift out. We can, you know, give it to the world, right? And in our most unique way. And so it's like really, really deep. And I keep trying to figure out, how do I like work this into my work exactly? Because it's so deep. I feel shy about like saying it out loud, but I'm still letting it like ground me. And then also just like the other thought was just sort of a question to throw out there. I know we're ending, but sort of that question of, okay, like myself, right, as a person who say is coming into a community and has probably oftentimes not experienced a lot of the trauma that the folks there have, and like kind of that line of, you know, trying to open up a space of vulnerability and maybe sharing some of my traumas without centering myself as a person, you know, and how that could really break the rapport and break that hoped for space. So I'll just throw that out there.
Thanks, April. And I had to laugh when you mentioned Bruce. You would have seen myself, Fiona, and Vic all nodding because we've all done his core gifts training, and I recommend it for anybody that wants to dig deeper, because it does talk about the gift of trauma, and the gift that it gives you is to help bring your core gift to life. So, and you should have a chat with Fiona if you want to know how to you weave core gifts into your work. Fiona's the queen of it, so she does it with all of her ABCD work. So thank you, everybody. We've gone a little bit over time. Thank you for joining us, and just, you know, this was just an opportunity for us to, you know, bring to light or shine a light on the fact that, you know, trauma-informed practice does intersect, interweave, interlock, however you want to describe it, with ABCD and those really participatory processes. So thank you all. Go well. Enjoy the rest of your unconferencing. And of course, it wouldn't be a session with me hosting if I didn't just have to pop in the chat a little plug for next year. The World Community Development Conference is in Darwin in June next year, and we would love to see you all come along. It's currently open for submissions if you're wanting to present, and also registration. So go well and enjoy your day and enjoy your next session.
Do you want to take a photo
Oh, yes.
for the harvest?
Yep.
Absolutely. So everybody, if you want to be in the photo, please turn your screen or your camera on, and I will count you down. 2, 1, and snap. Oh no, I've got to do that again. I have my mouth open. That was the worst photo. Let's try again. So 3, 2, 1, and go. Hopefully that looks a bit better. All righty. Thanks, everybody. Go well, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, bye.